Aunt Licia of Night Owl Stories, and tonight I will narrate another story in my new Tales of the Shtetl collection. This one is called The Simpleton's Beard, and it's a love story having to do with facial hair. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I take you on a journey into the past. Facial hair became the subject of great controversy in Cholensk. And for once, there were only two factions on the matter, a rare occurrence in Jewish history. On the one hand, the modernist proponents of accelerated Jewish assimilation observed that Russian fashion included trimmed beards and smooth-shaven faces, but rarely the abundant beards and unkempt hair Jews were known for. How were the Jews going to be accepted by Russian society if they looked like blackberry bushes? On the other, the traditionalists, led by the rabbi, adamantly pointed to Leviticus 19:27, which states, "You shall not round off the side growth on your head or destroy the side growth of your beard." The Cholensk Shtetl Council had more modernists than traditionalists at this time, but because their majority was narrow, the modernists were careful with their decisions. Although there were much more pressing needs that they seemed incapable of addressing, they issued an ordinance decreeing that the beggars, which were plentiful in Cholensk, would receive free shaving services. The ordinance was such that shaving would happen every 3 days automatically unless the beggar opposed the decision, and would be conducted by the town barber. This only inflamed the controversy. The barber, who went by Itzik the Mustache, was incensed. "Am I expected to perform these services for free?" The council had not given much thought to the funding of their proposal, but in the face of this hurdle, they persisted. "Let us discuss this with the Charitable Society," the current leader of the council, Fyodor Hamashkil, decided. The Charitable Society was traditionally comprised of women and headed by the Rebbetzin, the rabbi's wife. She was summoned into the council's small office, and Fyodor, attired like a member of the Russian nobility, waved her in and pointed her to a flimsy chair. "Cholensk is in need of reconciliation," he intoned. The Rebbetzin smiled amiably. "Only because you created a rift in the first place." Fyodor considered her to be a mere pawn of the rabbis, and the meeting was his way of speaking indirectly to the rabbi's faction. "Tell your husband that we may have a solution." The Rebetzin's eyes flashed with anger, but she kept her tone perfectly courteous. "And what might this solution entail?" Fyodor's chest puffed up. "It is a marvel of ingenuity and fairness. We have a small but insufficient budget to compensate Itzik for his services. We are asking the Charitable Society to contribute the remainder of the monies. It's a truly tiny sum. It would show goodwill on the part of the traditionalists, and the rabbi wouldn't have to lose face." The Rebbetzin cocked her head at a curious angle, as if Fyodor were a strange specimen. "Meaning, I can lose face because I'm a woman, and he shouldn't." This was not going as Fyodor had intended. "My dear Rebbetzin, you misunderstand me. You are playing the role of a behind-the-scenes diplomat. Besides, there are hygiene advantages to your constituency being shaved and combed. Do we not want our more unfortunate residents to be presentable?" Presentable to whom? You ignore them entirely, whereas our charitable society deals with them all the time. They are perfectly presentable to me. Fyodor's desperation was increasing by the moment. It was time for his trump card. "Then let me confess that we have a bigger problem on our hands. Itzik is so angry that he has threatened to take his business elsewhere." The Rebbetzin paled. The barber catered to the modernists, but also to many ladies in the shtetl, including herself. This would be a great blow to feminine morale. "Very well," she said carefully. "You will amend the ordinance to say that beggars will be asked whether they wish to be shaved and have their hair cut before anything is done. And you will specify the amounts provided by the council and the charitable society to pay for the services." It was not ideal, but no compromise ever is. Fyodor exhaled in relief. "And you have the authority to make such a counter-proposal?" he asked. "For a modernist," the Rebbetzin replied coldly, "you seem stuck in the Middle Ages." With that, she left. And this is where our tale truly begins. Now the Rebbetzin had a daughter, Rivka, who was a study in contradictions. She was dutiful and self-effacing, and yet coquettish, liking to enhance her appearance with whatever adornments could be afforded. Observant and knowledgeable in the many precepts of the Torah, and yet hopelessly hooked on romance novels that set her imagination afire. And kind and compassionate, but squeamish in the face of extreme poverty. "Rivka," the Rebbetzin said, "you've helped me many times with my charitable work. You've mended and cleaned old blankets, sewn old clothes, baked loaves of bread. But you've never come with me to see the beggars and speak with them." "Oh, Mother," Rivka quailed. "Don't you think it's time?" her mother insisted. "You're a grown woman now." Rivka nodded reluctantly. "I have a task for you then. You will accompany Itzik the mustache on his rounds, as he shaves our less fortunate brethren." Rivka was startled. "Itzik? But he's a very strange little man." "Strange or no, that is who you would be working with." Rivka was not one to question her mother, and so the matter was settled. The rounds were ghastly. The beggars smelled horrible, like walking latrines. They were often bellicose or drunk, leering at her and saying lewd things. Sometimes they had festering sores or goiters or other disgusting ailments. This was abhorrent work, and yet the barber seemed focused on his task and performing it well. "How do you do it?" she asked him after the first repellent beard was shaved. "How do I do what?" "You know, endure the smell Itzik's mustache quivered as he worked through his perplexity. The smell. These are my customers. I'm paid to make them look and feel better, and so I will. Baruch Hashem. May the Lord be blessed. This inspired Rivka to steel herself and find kind words for the beggars, no matter what state they were in. There was one exception, and that was She'eno, the simpleton who spent his days lost in unintelligible mumbling. No one knew where he was from, how old he was, what his real name was, or what his gibberish meant. Whatever you said to him, he seemed not to hear it. She'eno had gotten his name from the Ma'nishtana, the Passover song which mentions 4 children with various degrees of ability. The 4th is the one who doesn't even know how to ask questions. She'eno yodea lish'ol in Hebrew. Certainly, She'eno was incapable of asking questions or understanding them, and when Rivka asked him whether he wanted to be shaved, the request fell on uncomprehending ears. Strikes me as a pretty clear-cut case, Itzik said. He's like a child and can't decide for himself. We decide for him. Rivka was troubled by Itzik's reasoning. I'm not so sure. Please let me ask my family, and you'll have your answer 3 days from now. Suit yourself, Itzik said. That evening, Rivka brought up the matter over dinner. The rabbi stroked his beard, as was his manner when he was thinking deeply. The Rebbetzin said, there are several reasons why we shouldn't cut She'eno's beard. The first is that because he can't decide for himself doesn't mean we should decide for him. Rivka looked down at her plate. But mother, he can't even decide whether to eat, and yet we feed him. Rivka's brother Aharon, a serious young man, frowned, but the Rebbetzin gave her daughter a lenient smile. All right. Here's another reason. We are tight on funds. Every time Itzik shaves someone, we must pay him. Why not save a little money, since She'eno won't care one way or the other? Besides, we are not here to do the modernists' bidding. The counter-argument came from an unexpected quarter. And yet, the rabbi said mysteriously, and yet, is this not a case of tzara'at, mange? If a man is afflicted with tzara'at, he is permitted to shave. Father, tzara'at refers to skin diseases, Aharon said. To my knowledge, She'eno does not have a skin condition unless he's developed one recently. He hasn't, Rivka confirmed. The rabbi looked sad. But he has tzara'at of the soul, which keeps him from speaking. Who knows, perhaps shaving will help some part of him return. It was a very strange statement, but no one had it in them to question it, and thus, on Itzik's next round, She'eno's bushy beard was shaved, and his abundant hair was trimmed and styled. To Rivka's astonishment, what was revealed as the curls fell to the ground was the best-looking young man she had ever seen. He had fine features, almost like a girl's, a beautiful straight nose, full, mulberry lips, a gorgeous cleft chin, and green eyes that had been lost in a sea of hairy vagueness, and now sparkled mysteriously. He looked like a hero Absalom, King David's heartbreaker of a son. She gaped and gaped at him. Itzik laughed. He's a looker, all right. Rivka blushed, and on impulse, she placed her hand on the young man's shoulder and said, "Who knew you were hiding there in plain sight?"